Welcome to another edition of Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. Today's guests are the paranormal power couple, Father Larry Elward and his wife Debbie. Halloween may be over, but it's never too late for a good ghost story. And Larry and Debbie have many stories to tell. So Larry, Debbie, welcome to the show.
Thanks
Rich,
for having
thanks
us,
for having
Rich.
us.
All right. So Larry, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
You consider yourself a paranormal priest.
Yes, I do.
What exactly is that?
Well, all my life I've been interested in the paranormal. I think what first wanted me to become a priest was when I saw The Exorcist when I was 14 years old. I was really interested in it. I always wanted to be a priest anyway, but I always wanted to specialize in the religious aspect of the exorcisms. And let's see. After I graduated from high school, I went to college and went to work for a while. And then I met Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Who people might know, or I'm sure do know, The Conjuring is the story of their life, or, different cases of their life history. And they've been around forever. They were probably one of the original ghost hunters in this area.
Yeah, they were definitely pioneers both in this area and in the United States.
Yeah.
So after I met them in around 1985 or so, we went on a few cases together, and one of the cases that I saw was an exorcism. And I was really impressed with that, and I decided, if I want to become a paranormal investigator, maybe I ought to take a few courses in theology, to help, because I believe exorcism, as well as most of the paranormal, is a religious subject. And I thought getting a degree or at least a few courses under my belt would assist me in this kind of work or ministry. Well, lo and behold, I went to get a couple of courses at a Holy Apostles Seminary in Cromwell, Connecticut, and a couple of courses led to a master's degree in theology. However, as far as demonology goes, or exorcisms, or anything regarding the paranormal, the priests there and the instructors, the professors, they wanted to know absolutely nothing about it. And to this day, 30 years later, I think most priests and clergymen and theological professors, they don't want to know very much about it either. I don't know if it's by choice or what the problem is.
I think it has a lot to do with them being afraid.
I think it does too. Sad to say.
But the question I have for you is, I thought you had to be ordained by the Catholic Church in order to perform exorcisms.
Well, my ordination comes from the Catholic Church, the Episcopal Church, and the Eastern Orthodox Church. What I've joined is like a movement of clergy or people that want to become priests or deacons that would like to do an independent kind of ministry, but not be held under the thumb of either Rome, Constantinople, or the Church of England. So therefore, I'm given a lot of leeway to do whatever I would like to do, and one of the ministries that I do is paranormal investigating and exorcisms.
Very interesting. We're going to get back to that, but first, Debbie.
Yes.
Tell me how you got involved into the paranormal.
Well, I could always see things, see my ancestors and all, and I could see spirits, and I would actually ask people what I'm seeing, are they real people? And they'd say, we don't even know what you're talking about. We don't see anybody there. So I decided to look into why I was having these visions and this ability. And I went with my sister one afternoon to see the Warrens, and they had a class scheduled that they were signing up, and my sister and I said, this would be really cool. And I said, yeah, let's do it. So we signed up with the Warrens, and I was still skeptical. I didn't really want to walk into a haunted house because one thing to see your ancestors, another thing to see a haunted house. And I remember the night of my 40th birthday, Ed Warren took us to a house in Hartford, Connecticut, and we were given these stations to sit in, and my sister and I were in the conservatory, and I saw a white figure walk across in front of us, and I mentioned it to Ed Warren, and I said, what was that? Was it an aura or what? He goes, honey, you just saw your first spirit. Wow. And I was hooked.
I would be hooked as well. I've been over the Warrens' house plenty of times. Back in the 90s, they used to have tours in the museum.
Right.
And I used to go on different, not investigations, I wish I did, but I would go to the Stepney Cemetery and Union Cemetery, and back then it was all about the white lady.
Yes.
Who roamed that area. So that was the big story they were talking about. But I had so much fun. I never saw anything, but I do have some good pictures of one time I took a picture of an area where supposedly back in the Civil War area, 2 young boys died, but they had a great sense of humor and they loved showing themselves. When I came back, I took it on my phone, so I was able to like zoom in, zoom out, and I saw something in the bottom right-hand corner and inside the window, and I can show you after the show's over. 2 young boys. It's perfectly clear. I remember showing it to them. They're like, "Oh my God!" And I bring it to a paranormal convention that we go to all the time in Rhode Island, and everybody's like, "I would love to see if we can maybe develop this and see if we can prove that it's real." But I definitely believe in the paranormal. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that tell all these stories because they want to get their name in the paper, and that is why most people are skeptical, because they're like, "Oh, come on, this guy is lying." But the real people, I think, are you two, who aren't really trying to make a buck off of it. You're just telling your story, and you're doing it to help people. And
yeah, that's what we want to do. We want to get the word out that there is a resource for people that are suffering that can, they can go to us for help.
And also, we've always tended to do this as some kind of a ministry, so there's not much money in doing ministry like this.
Well, you brought it up a little bit, but being involved in the paranormal is not exactly a field that you can get a college degree in. So how did you prepare for your first exorcism?
The only way you can prepare is just do as much studying as you can. Look up some good books on the subject. Read about the exorcisms of the past by the accounts of other exorcists, and just hope for the best. That's all you can do. Because nowadays, usually you're tutored by another exorcist that's worked in the field. I kind of had that advantage when I was working with an exorcist in Monroe. It was Father Robert McKenna. You've probably heard of him.
Yes.
He was in charge of the Latin Mass chapel in Monroe, and he also did a lot of exorcisms for Ed and Lorraine Warren. And although I was not an assistant exorcist at the time, what I was kind of like his acolyte. I would assist him with the holy water and all kinds of other things that he needed assistance with.
Well, I was watching some things on YouTube about you, and there was a 5-minute documentary that was filmed at Lords of Litchfield. And you had something that you said, it was The Exorcist and the book Amityville Horror that really piqued your interest to get into this field.
That's right.
What's your opinion of the Amityville Horror now? Do you think it's real, or do you think that, because there's so many stories, people saying that the lawyer of the Lutzes sued the Lutzes because he came up with the story and he wanted part of the deal, part of the cash that they received from the movie and the book. But do you think that there were really spirits in the house?
I really believe that there are spirits in the house. However, as far as the accounts go, I think all of the accounts have a little grain of truth in it.
Yeah.
It was probably not a haunted house at the time of the murders, but I think things happened that escalated the evil in there. It escalated the paranormal activity to the point that it became a very haunted house.
Have you been in there yourself?
No, I haven't, but I've been across the street from it.
I was in comedy for a while, and I played at the Revolution Bar, which was down the street from there as well. And I never got a chance to drive by there, which I know the new owners are very mad that people are driving by there all the time, and I really don't blame them. Because basically, right now, all it is a house. But
and it looks just like a house.
Yeah, exactly.
Just like a regular
so you're not going to
house.
see anything. It's not like unless you're Debbie, you're not going to see a ghost walking across the lawn.
Right.
Now, I love this story because you made a comment that you are Ed and Lorraine Warren on steroids. I like to refer to you as the paranormal power couple. This is the best story. Describe to my listeners how the two of you met.
Okay, well, I worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren, and we had a case in Massachusetts where the young girl had come under possession, and we arranged, the group I was with Ed and Lorraine, arranged to have Bishop McKenna come to the girl's house and perform an exorcism. And he brought along his assistant. And during the exorcism, she would fight and she would scratch and she would scream and everything. It was a very intense exorcism. All of a sudden, there was this, like a snap, and she calmed down, and everything got brighter and lighter, almost like after a spring rain, when the air clears and everything's so fresh and everything. And we looked at each other and we said, "Oh my goodness, I think she's been delivered." At that point, I was told to go upstairs because just before the exorcism, oil was seeping up through the floorboards, and they wanted me to see if there was still oil up there. So I started to go upstairs, and in front of me was Bishop McKenna's assistant. And I got up to the landing, and he looked at me, and he said, I'm going to check out my contacts. And I thought, okay, that's a little bit weird. And I just continued to walk to the room where the oil was coming up. Little did I know that within, I'd say, 3 years, that assistant would become my husband.
And here we are.
Wow, I love that. Forget online dating. Just
Right.
You can meet somebody at an exorcism.
Why not? Worked for us.
Especially if you're not being exercised at the same time.
All right, we will be back with paranormal power couple Larry and Debbie Elward on Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner right after this. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. I am speaking with paranormal power couple Larry and Debbie Elward. Larry, Debbie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you,
Thank
Rich.
you.
All right, so when we last left off, you were talking about how you met at an exorcism. Now, I wanted to talk about this exorcism. I think maybe you sort of touched upon it. It was Massachusetts farmer Maurice Theriault. Is that the exorcism where you two met? Or
No,
No, it
that
wasn't.
that was many years later.
But I was personally there for that.
okay, so tell me about. We probably have enough time for at least one case, and I want to talk about that one right now. So you were in Massachusetts, and was he possessed?
Well, Debbie knows a lot about this case also, but yes, he was possessed. And when I was there doing the preliminary investigation with a couple of other paranormal researchers from Ed Lorraine's group, things were pretty calm. Maurice was really the nicest guy. He had the nice family and all that. And like I said, things were calm and nothing was really happening. So me being me, I took out some holy water. I said, hey, Maurice, take a sip of this holy water just to see what's going on, see if anything happens, because things were getting kind of dull. So he takes a sip of the holy water. Then all of a sudden he goes completely under possession, clenches his fists, and spits out the holy water. Okay, as he's spitting the holy water out, he's wearing a white T-shirt. It drips on his shirt, and as it hits the shirt, it turns bright red.
Wow.
So after that, I decided no more experiments. This guy's possessed.
Was he speaking in tongues, different languages?
He spoke in tongues during the exorcism. He spoke in Latin.
Now, sorry, go ahead, Debbie.
I've seen pictures of Maurice in during the exorcism. I've heard tapes from Maurice, and his face would actually take on the skin on his face would almost look like a reptile. His face would harden. His skin on his arms would harden, and everything. A few years later, his oldest daughter, had some paranormal problems, and I went to her house, and she had her father's hat. And during the investigation we were conducting, the hat would be in one room, and then we'd go into another room, and there would be the hat. We were talking about Maurice and what had been going on when she was a child, and we noticed and smelled fire. We went out into the kitchen, and a family Bible had burst into flames in the kitchen. None of us saw it, but we were all in the living room, so it wasn't like somebody had run out to light it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's all I can say to that is wow. All right, well, let me get back to you, Larry. On the documentary that we saw, you mentioned the fact that there's a lot of competition between the two, different paranormal groups. Is there a lot of people saying, no, they're not legitimate, this is true, that's not true? Or do you guys work together to help solve different cases, or is it more like, no, don't go with them, go with me? Is there a lot of competition?
Well, as I said earlier, Deb and I, well, I do anyway, consider this like as a ministry. So we any group that reaches out to us for assistance, we're more than happy to assist. We even go out of state to help some groups, like in Maine especially. However, that being said, there are a lot of disreputable groups around, and just recently, our buddy John Zaffis related a story to us. He was at one of these Paracon or Parafest conventions, and there was a ghost hunting team, and they were professing that they had the original Annabelle with them. Oh. Honest to God. and they didn't even know who John Zaffis was.
That's the best part.
One guy claimed to be John Zaffis' cousin.
Yeah. Well, let me explain to my listeners in case nobody knows. John Zaffis is Ed and Lorraine Warren's nephew. Well, really, Ed Warren's nephew.
Right.
And he's been doing this since he was young himself. Mm-hmm. And now, it sounds like the two of you work with him on a regular basis?
Yes, we do.
Plus, we just found out recently, maybe 5 years ago, that John Zaffis' wife is Larry's cousin.
Wow. I guess the paranormal world is kind of small.
And we've known each other for over 30 years.
Many, many lifetimes.
We met at the Maurice Theriault Exorcism, by the way, in '85. That's how long we've worked together.
I guess I can ask both of you separately, or if the answer is the same for the two of you. What is the most terrifying thing that you have seen on one of your investigations?
I don't know about terrifying, but we have had a levitation. That'll get your attention.
In our living room.
Wait, in your living room?
Yeah.
We were doing an exorcism over a young woman that came to see us from New Jersey, and just before the end of the exorcism, we had 5 people holding her down because they do fight during an exorcism. They really want to stop the prayers from happening, and she put her head back and she screamed, and all of a sudden we couldn't control her. It was like a terrible force, and we noticed on the video that the chair and her raised up a good 3-4 inches, and just after she raised up, there was a loud snap, and we could smell ozone, which is a sign that the entity had left.
Hey, Rich, you know how we say that these paranormal groups don't get along?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, John had a whole bunch of the heads of all these various groups in the area over his house one day, and he showed them the videotape of the woman levitating. And these groups, we don't agree on orbs or this or that or ozone. Is the orb smiling? Is it laughing? Is it crying? Everybody saw the tape, and they all agreed that the woman did indeed levitate.
Now, do you have this on video?
John does it. But unfortunately, we had it on video, but shortly after the exorcism, like an hour or so, went to get our video out of our video camera, and the camera had melted the door shut.
Wow.
And it looked like a giant thumbprint, as we could never get the tape out again.
Now, when you're doing exorcisms, or when you're going on different investigations, obviously the exorcism, when you're doing it, it's more of a demon, am I correct?
That's right.
Possessing the person. But on these investigations, do you find that they're more, like, they're not as evil manifestations, or do you find that most of the spirits are on the evil side?
Well, it depends on what we're being called in for. If somebody has a ghost in the house, obviously that's not going to be evil.
Yeah.
So it's at that point that Debbie will cross the ghost to the light or something like that, or I'll do a house blessing, or I'll do prayers for the dead. Sometimes
people will call us in because they have what they think is a ghost, and come to find out it's the beginning stages of an evil entity coming in, because they don't just barge in to your life. What they do is they might come in and mimic a deceased relative or something, because if they came barging in, you'd get help right away. They got to wait till they're entrenched in your lives before they make themselves known.
Now, is it like the Hollywood movies where somebody has a doll and the spirit is in the doll and they bring the doll home? Or is it, because you made a great comment, and I want you to talk about this, because you said The Exorcist is definitely Hollywood, but if you want to see a movie that's really true to life, The Exorcism of Emily Rose was more accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. More realistic.
Yeah, because that shows exactly what can happen during an exorcism. I mean, we've never had anybody turn their head 360 degrees. We've had them vomit, and we have had them get scratches and stuff. But The Exorcist, the movie, is a little more Hollywood hype than a real exorcism.
But the movie The Exorcist did get people's attention, and it brought awareness to the paranormal, I think.
I think it was based on a 13-year-old boy, if I'm correct.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
What was the real story of that boy?
His great aunt lived with them, and she was a spiritualist, and she would use a Ouija board to contact I believe it was the deceased relatives, and she died, and he wanted to get closer and still, be in communication with her, and so he started playing with the Ouija board by himself.
Do you find that most cases that you are investigating begin with the Ouija board?
I think quite a lot do, because nowadays there's more ways to communicate with spirits than just the Ouija board. You have the Ouija board, of course, but then you have these things called ghost boxes, and whatever.
You can get a Ouija board app for your phone.
Well, it is made by Parker Brothers, after all. But I have to tell you a story about a Ouija board when I was young. Just joking around, my brothers and I were playing around with it, and my brother's name is Jeff. I said, "When's Jeff going to die?" And joking around, the thing said, "Tomorrow," spelled out Tomorrow. So we laughed. The next day, there was a whole big sinkhole. We didn't realize it was there. He fell in. The thing caved in up into his neck. We're like, okay, I think we should put this Ouija board away.
Yep.
No more playing with that. Anyway, it's time for another break. We'll be back with the paranormal power couple, Larry and Debbie Elward, on Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner right after this. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. I am speaking with paranormal power couple, Larry and Debbie Elward. I'm going to try that one more time. That's what I love about recording. Welcome back to Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. I am speaking with paranormal power couple, Larry and Debbie Elward. Larry, Debbie, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Rich.
Thank you.
All right, we've been talking about exorcisms, different investigations that you've been on. Now, in 2010, a movie named The Conjuring came out. And that was a story which I interviewed her on my podcast, Andrea Perrin.
Right.
And we did a 3-hour interview all about her life living in the house in Rhode Island. You've been over there, is that correct?
Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever encounter anything that you could talk about here?
We went over to visit our friend Corey, who bought the house. We had known Corey from up in Maine, and we were anxious to get in the house. The minute we crossed over the driveway, we felt the energy. We didn't stay past dark, so I can't say what they say the house turns at dark. I don't know. I did encounter spirits there. They had little children in period dress, I would say maybe the 1800s, looking out of one of the windows. That day, just before we came, one of the doors that is very hard to opened on its own. We heard a banshee screaming and crying out in the yard. What we said was a banshee because it was a woman's voice. But we left about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, so I can't say what happens at night. We have been invited to spend a night there, and we're really looking forward to doing that.
Well, I was lucky enough. I go to a paranormal convention in Rhode Island, and it was right after Corey bought the house.
Right.
And he said, "Yeah, come on over." So I got the tour before, because if people who don't know, it was supposed to happen in November. I think it's going to happen a little bit later.
January, I believe.
January.
Now.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. They're going to be opening the house for tours, and I'm so glad I was able to go in there and just have like a one-on-one conversation with Corey and his wife. They are the two nicest people in the world. I'm
They
so
are.
glad that they bought it, and I'm so glad that they're doing this because the house is even if you don't believe in the spirit world, the house has such a great history to it. It's such a great place to visit. I personally didn't feel anything there, but I was only there during the daytime as well for about
Right.
25, 30 minutes. But, speaking with Andrea, speaking with Corey, speaking with his wife, there's definitely some spirit activity still going on.
Well, I'm not psychic either, Rich, but all I can say is that it's a beautiful house. It's inhabited by beautiful people.
Yeah.
And that's it. God gave me the gift of exorcism and being a priest. He didn't give me the gift of seeing dead people, which I guess is pretty fortunate, believe it or not.
Well, that's where Debbie comes in, right?
Yes, it
Right.
is.
So what are the two of you doing now? Are you in the middle of an investigation?
Well, right at the moment, we have a young man who's going to be doing a documentary on Larry doing exorcism. So we're looking forward to that, and just getting ready for the holiday season, like normal people.
We don't do that many investigations on our own anyway. We're more than happy to do it. But basically, right now, at this point in our lives and careers, we just get called in as consulters. The case has already been investigated. We just have to go in and
Yeah, our last case was in Maine. We had done a young man who had come in problems with a Ouija board. I think we forwarded the video to you, Rich.
What? What was that? I'm sorry.
Larry forwarded the video.
Oh, yes,
to
he did.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was the case. That was the case.
All right. Well, I know I love the video, and I find this fascinating. This subject, I can go on and on and on about it. And how can people get in touch with you if they need an exorcism done, or if they just need their house investigated because they think that there's weird happenings? Okay,
they could email us at Deb and Larry. It's all one word at 1103 at yahoo.com, or they could go on our Facebook pages. Larry has his own, Larry Elward, and I have my own, Debbie Chamberlain Elward, and we'd be more than happy to talk with you.
And you travel anywhere, is that correct?
We do.
Yeah, most of our cases are out of state for some reason. We haven't done a local case in a long, long time.
And we don't charge for any of our help. We do, except if we had to go great distance and they wanted to reimburse us for gas, that'd be about it.
Well, what was the furthest that you've ever traveled?
Alabama.
Mm-hmm. You know what? In Kentucky, I went to a place called Waverly Hills.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of that, yeah.
I didn't see anything there, but I got to spend the whole night there. They have tours, and from 12 to 6 in the morning. I think it was a former hospital that turned into an insane asylum.
It was a TB hospital.
Yes, tuberculosis. Yeah. That's what it was. And I got to go down the chute where they put the dead bodies. So I was down there, and the only thing I saw were some bats. But
no, that's good. That's all right.
But there were not sure how accurate they were, if they were just embellishing. But there were some people that did say they had some stories. And they did feel things. But do you think it's sometimes, like, I'm very much open to wanting to see something, but and that's, I know, a good thing. But do you think sometimes, like, if you're too willing to want to see something, that's when they're going to hold back, or do you think it really matters?
I think they're attracted to people's lights. You know, we're all psychic to some extent, and when you're really in tune to the spirit world, I believe you give off a light, and they're like moths attracted to your light. So they are attracted to people. I have a friend who does ghost photography, and I believe that that they're attracted to him. Not, somebody else could be standing next to him and not take the same picture.
So do you think everybody has that power and they just don't know how to use it?
I think everybody's born with psychic ability, but you lose it as you get older. When you stop believing in fairy tales and things like that, and you start to get your adult mind and everything. I never gave up that belief in fairy tales and Santa Claus and all. So I think that's why I kept my psychic ability.
Hey, Rich, you know how they say seeing is believing? Well, in our work, we say believing is seeing.
I like that. Need a bumper sticker for that.
Well, hey, why not?
Get some business cards with that. No, it's been great talking to the two of you.
Great talking to you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, I would love to have you on again because we can talk about so many other things. I would love to hear more about different cases that you've been on. Okay. You know what? When you spend the night at the Conjuring house, you have to come back and tell me what you see.
Okay, we will do that.
We will. Absolutely.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Nutmeg Chatter presents The Claw's Corner. I had a great time discussing the good and bad of the afterlife with my guests, the power couple, Ed and Lorraine Warren on steroids, Larry and Debbie Elward. I would also like to thank you, the listener, for tuning in every week. Enjoy your day, everyone.